Welcome to this quick tutorial on how to use your 6000S Smart Interactive Flat Screen. This panel is an excellent device, and we're going to just go through some of the basic features on this video to help you get started in your classrooms. When the board is mounted to the wall, you're not going to see the inputs on the back of the board very easily, but I want you to be aware of what is behind your board. Now, depending on the way the boards were mounted, it is possible that your school has already connected your HDMI and USB cable back here, and the cables will either be hanging off the side of the board, or they might be through the drop ceiling and to a wall plate close to the board or close to your teacher station. Again, it depends on how your school is setting up the cables, but just know there will be two cables, an HDMI and a USB. On the back, just so you're aware of what's there, you have two HDMI and USB inputs. You also have some additional inputs and outputs that you may use depending on your circumstances. The HDMI out, that would be if you were trying to connect, for example, this board to another board and have them display identical screens. The output would basically take what's on here and put it on the other device. Not something you're going to use on a day-to-day basis, but that is what's there. You also have this service USB port, which is only really for your IT department. They will know what to do with that. For the most part, you do not plug anything into the USB labeled service. The last USB is a USB 3.0. That is where you could put a flash drive with pictures, files, anything like that. However, you're not going to need to reach that USB in the back, because right here on the side of the board, which is easily accessible, you will have additional USB ports. So it is in the back. I want you to be aware that it's in the back, but you are mostly going to use the ones right here on that convenience panel. Looking at the convenience panel, you are going to notice you have 5 buttons, USBs, and an HDMI. So we're going to just quickly walk through what each of those buttons do for you. The top button, which is a power icon, that is going to put your board to sleep and wake your board up. Now, 99% of the time, you just want to put the board to sleep. So even though that is not a full power cycle, that's all you want to do. The reason for that is Smart will send over-the-air updates in the middle of the night when they know there's no teachers physically using the boards. If you turn your board off all the way, your device is not going to get those updates to the software and the firmware. So you put the board to sleep, you wake the board up. We will look at where the actual power button is, just so you know. However, like I said, 99% of the time, this is what you want to do. The next 2 buttons are your volume up and your volume down. This board has very loud speakers, so try it out, see what works in your classroom, but just know, really loud, you will be happy with the sound. The next button is the pause button. For those of you that have used projectors in the past, the pause button is similar to that. When you hit the freeze button on your projector, it froze your screen so you can do something else on the computer, but the thing that you had displayed remains for your students. This was great if you had to send a quick email while your students were reading a passage or anything like that. This pause button does the exact same thing. You're only really going to use that when you're connected to a computer, because if you do that when you're connected to, for example, the Android device, if you freeze it, there is no second screen for you as the teacher to work on, so it's kind of redundant. The last button, kind of, in my opinion, looks like a paintbrush, but it's actually supposed to be a curtain, and what it does is it blacks out the screen. So let's say you're doing something with the students and you just need to get their attention really fast. Rather than put the board to sleep and then turn the board back on and have to reopen your files, you just hit that little button that looks like a curtain, and it blacks out the screen. When you're ready to resume, you hit the curtain again, and the screen will come back on to exactly what it had before. So that is the buttons on the side panel. You will also see you have 2 more of those USB 3.0s. That's where, like I said before, on the back, you can plug in a flash drive with additional files, photos, anything like that. So you won't need to reach the one in the back, because you will have it right here in the front, nice and easy to reach. The last thing on the front is your convenience HDMI connection. The HDMI is right here, and right above it, inside that square, is your USB. When you are using your smart panel, you are always going to use a USB and an HDMI. Think of it as the HDMI is your television. That's your visual, that's your audio. The USB is your mouse. So if you plug in a HDMI without a mouse, you won't have the touch function because it's just going to be the display. By plugging in that USB cable right here, that's where you're going to be able to get that interactive and the mouse features. So again, the back of the board has all of the inputs. However, if your school has not already set something up for you and this is mounted against a wall, you are going to just stick to the ones in the front because they're easy to reach and they're accessible. So now that we looked at that convenience panel, I want to make you aware of the master switch for power because there is an occasional time you might need to know this. For the majority of the time, you are just going to put that board to sleep because by turning off the master power, you are also preventing automatic updates from coming into your board. If you do need to do that master power though, it is on the opposite side of your panel and it is in the back. So when the board is mounted on your wall, it's going to be difficult to see. However, you can feel for it if you know what you're looking for. So when you reach to the back of the board, you will see the cord for the power. Right below that cord is a toggle switch. That toggle switch is your master power. It will turn it on and it will turn it off. This is how you can cycle the power or shut the board off for an extended vacation. Before I had the board turned sideways so you can easily see the side panel and the back of the board. However, I wanted you to just notice if the board is facing front, aka if it's mounted on your wall, the side panel right here, you can still see all those buttons nice and easily. You're not going to be stretching to reach behind. You're not going to have to be worrying about your hand fitting. It will just be right there on the side. So it's a great convenience panel. It is nice and easy to reach. So we are going to start with our board turned off right now because I want you to see exactly what it will look like when you walk into the classroom. So the board will be dark, but your home button will be lit up. If your home button is not lit, that means there's no power coming to the board. So if that is the case, there's two things to check. The first thing is to check if it's plugged in. The second thing is that power toggle I showed you when I had the board sideways. So you would just reach behind the board, feel for that cable, and right underneath the power cable, you would find that toggle switch. So again, if the home button is not lit up, you are going to have to reach behind your board to that toggle switch and just see if it turns on. If the toggle switch doesn't work, you're going to just need to look to see where the plug is and if it is plugged in. If it's plugged into a surge protector, also check the toggle switch on that surge protector because we all know that the toggle switches are always seem to be the problem. So check your surge protector, check the plug itself, and then check the toggle switch in the back of the board. Make sure that home button is lit up. To turn your board on, you are going to just come over to the side and hit that power button. You'll notice it wakes up right away, the board's turning on, and it comes to my home screen. Notice that when the board wakes up, it's going to just have the default screen. You should see the whiteboard and the browser as your default functions because those are the two built-in Android apps that are favorited. We will talk about custom favoritization after, but I just want you to see the home screen itself for now. So on the home screen, you have a couple of things to be aware of. In the top left, you have a little icon of a person. This is where you can log into the board and connect to your Google Drive. Really important to connect to your Google Drive because you want those files to follow you from class to class. And also, if you create a Lumio file at home or on your laptop, you can pull it onto the board directly without actually connecting a computer. That's one of the benefits of this panel that you've had installed in your classrooms. Everything is built into that board and you do not need to connect a computer at all. So the next thing you're going to see on to the left of the screen, you have this little widget tool. When you click on the widget tool, you can pull up your clock, you can pull up dice, a spinner, and a timer. So let's say you told your students they have 10 minutes left to do an assignment. You don't really need anything on the board, but you want to put that timer. You would just open the widgets, click on the timer, and it would pop up on your screen, select 10 minutes, and hit play. It's that simple to just add a timer really conveniently right there on the board. To turn the timer off, you're going to just click on it so that you get that blue box, pull down the arrow, and hit delete. It shuts the timer off for you. Sometimes it does take 1 or 2 tries of touching for it to actually click. So if you don't see that blue box right away, just touch it again and it should pop up so you can get the down arrow and delete the timer. Down at the bottom of the left is your settings. Now, you're probably not going to need to go into the settings as a classroom teacher, but there are a few that I want you to be aware of for your knowledge. So the first setting is going to be your network setting. If you're having trouble connecting to the internet on your board, check that connection and make sure your Wi-Fi is turned on. The next one is wallpaper. This is where you can customize the background of your board. Now, what's really nice is, let's say you have a picture of your students that you want your wallpaper. As I mentioned before, you can put a flash drive right into the USB on the side, and those pictures would pop up right here where it says USB Pictures. After you pick the picture from the USB drive, it copies it to the board, so you don't need to leave the flash drive in, but you would have your custom pictures as a background option. Finally, the application settings. The launcher is that home screen. It lets you select what you want to appear on that home screen from these 3 options: your smart notebook, your browser, and your screen share. Most of the time, your school district is going to make the policy regarding screen share, so please talk to your tech director and your IT specialist to determine if that should be turned on or off. They probably have already preset it for you. I just want you to know it's there. If you are using screen share, down at the bottom there's a screen share button, and this is really important as well. I highly recommend that all teachers set permissions. This top option says require permission, and it prompts you before a device automatically connects. So turn that toggle switch to on, and what that's going to do is, rather than just display a student's screen, it will display the computer's name. So for example, my MacBook is labeled Corey's MacBook. So rather than just show my desktop, it would show Corey's MacBook, yes or no. And you would have to hit yes before the preview of the screen comes up. Really important in a classroom because you never know what students might share. Better to play it on the safe and cautious side. You could also turn off specific options. So if your students have Chromebooks, obviously they do not need to share from an AirPlay. So you can turn AirPlay off so they can't share from an iPhone or from a MacBook. Only share from Chrome, so only share with Chromecast. The other settings that you're going to notice are things like your audio, your display, your date and time. Those are the same type of settings that you have on your computer. So that's only if you need to adjust something. This is where you would find it in settings. Just be aware it's there. To get back to the home screen, you just hit that little home button on the bottom, and you will see we are back to our home screen again. So the settings was there on the bottom left. Let's keep going down. We have 4 options at the bottom. We have Files, Apps, Inputs, and Screen Share. Files is where you're going to find all of your whiteboards. If you are logged into the board, you will find your Smart Lumio files that are saved in your Google Drive. If you are not logged into the board, you will find all the previous whiteboards that have been completed on this panel. You can just scroll and you can keep going. You'll see I actually go all the way to December 2020 when this board came out of the box. It does not delete the files unless you want to delete them. If you wanted to delete a file, you're going to hold on to it until it gets a blue box around it and the rest of the screen kind of grays out. And when you do that, up here in the top right corner, you will see the delete button. So that is the only way to delete a file, is to manually hold it and then hit delete. It will not delete accidentally. Everything on this board remains on this board. The next option is your apps. So we're going to come right here and hit apps. What I want to just make you aware of is the word apps is a bit of a misnomer because these are not the same as your Android phones, your iPhones, your computers. These apps, for the most part, are going to be more shortcut than app. So what you can see is right here, these are the apps that are currently installed on the board, but I can hit the plus sign. And when I hit that plus sign, the first thing it shows is what's called Android, and these are actual apps just like your phone and your computer. So you'll notice I have GeoGebra, I have Zoom, I have Video Player, I have WPS Office. For those of you that don't know WPS Office, that is just an open source program that can open Microsoft Office files. I have Firefox, all different things. Then I move along and I see some Smart support, I see Microsoft, I see Google. I also have a Search the Collection. Notice the difference. The Androids have the download arrow while everything else just has a plus sign. So let's say that I know I am going to be using Google Slides a lot with my students. If I click the plus sign for Google Slides, you'll see it now has the green check. If I go back to the main screen of my apps, let me step out of the way, you will now see Google Slides is an option. When I click on it though, please note that it's actually opening my web browser to log into Google. So this is what I meant when I said it is not an app, it is a shortcut. It's not opening the phone version of Google Slides, it is opening my web browser to log into my Google Slides. The next button we're going to look at is the one called Input. When you click on Input, what you're going to see is a little preview of all of your computers that are currently plugged in. Since I have nothing plugged into this board right now, it just shows me HDMI 1, HDMI 3, HDMI 2, and VGA. If I was to plug a computer in, it would show me the preview of that computer screen so that I know, okay, I plugged my laptop in, which one is my laptop? Oh, right here, HDMI 1. Or if you have a desktop in the classroom and you're also plugging in your laptop, you could see your desktop and your laptop so you know which one is which. So it gives you that preview of the screen so that you are aware of what you want to look at. So again, that is your inputs. I hit the home button to go back to the main screen. The last button is your screen share. Again, depending on your school, they might have shut this one off, but screen share is going to open right here. And you will see that it says you must connect your device to the same Wi-Fi. So if your board is connected to like your teacher's network and your students are on a different network, the computer will not find the board. It has to be that same network. So if your school has one network, don't worry about it. If your school has multiple networks, your IT department is probably deciding what to do for the boards. You have a couple options. You can download an app using this QR code. That will make the connection simple, or like we mentioned before, you can use AirPlay, Chromecast, Miracast, whatever your device's native screen sharing is. As people start to share their screen, you will see these little blue rectangles would actually show previews of the screens. This is where I mentioned before, if you have those permissions set, instead of just showing the screen right away, it would say Corey's MacBook, yes or no. Again, 4 devices can be connected at once, and it gives you the preview of those devices so you know what you're looking at. The last thing on the home screen before we get into the apps is the cleanup button. If you are logged into your board, it will say sign off. If you are not logged in, it will say cleanup. When you click cleanup, it says cleanup now, yes or no. If you're logged in, it will say sign off now, yes or no. I'm going to click the little I just to show you exactly what it does. It cleans up getting the board ready for others, so it'll clear the whiteboard and save everything to the library. It'll log you out of everything in the browser, so if you were logged into your Google Drive or you were logged into YouTube, or if you guys are using a textbook company's website and you had to log in, it'll log you out of everything. And it will also close any documents. So basically that cleanup just helps the board run more efficiently and helps keep your things private compared to the next teacher coming into the classroom. Again, this is also a reason I recommend logging into the board, because it will keep all of your stuff in your account and it will partition the other teachers so you wouldn't even see each other's whiteboards. So now we're going to look at the whiteboard that is built into your Android. When you click Whiteboard, it's going to just open up a plain whiteboard, very basic, very easy, but it has a lot of functionality once you're in it. So the whiteboard opened up, and you're going to notice here on the bottom, you have backgrounds. So you can choose between just the plain white, you can put primary school lines, you can put yellow paper lines, kind of hard to see that in the camera, but this is actually yellowish. You can do graph paper. So you can choose from all of these different patterns. If you want your kids to kind of do like some kind of graffiti art, there is also the brick wall. Lots of different backgrounds depending on what you want to do with your students. So we're going to just go back to the white screen. Next thing you're going to notice on your board is you have 2 erasers and you have 2 pens. The erasers are just erasers, so when you pick this up and you touch it to the board, you'll notice it puts that little white rectangle behind it, and it will erase if there was something on the board. You can also erase by using your hand, so you can make a fist to make a small circle. You can make a big hand to make a big circle. It is using spatial recognition, so it can tell the size of your hand compared to the size of a pen. So we're going to look at the pen menu right now to start. When you click on the pen, you're going to notice a couple of things. First, you have the option of a pen or a highlighter. Then you have 3 thicknesses. And then you have all your colors. So let's start by looking at the thicknesses of the pen, and then we'll look at colors. So I am going to go to the thin pen first and just draw a straight line, or as straight as I can. Then I'm going to go to the medium thickness, and then I'm going to go to the thick. So this way you can see the 3 different lines, and you can decide what's going to be best for your students where they are. As I mentioned before, when you want to erase, you can either pick up that eraser, or you can take your hand. So that is totally up to your preference. Either one will work for that eraser. Your board comes with 2 pens. One is black and one is red. They will always default to those 2 colors, however they are not forced to be those 2 colors. So if I pick up my black pen, you'll notice it writes in black. If I pick up my red pen, you'll notice it writes in red. But what if I want to write blue and green? If I take my black pen and I click the pen tool icon and then click on a blue, now it's writing in blue. If I pick up my red pen though, it's still writing in red. If I now take the red pen to the pen and I select, let's go with orange, actually no, let's go with green, hoping the green and the blue have enough of a differentiation to them to see it on the camera. But now that I selected green, you'll see I'm writing in green. However, the black pen is still writing in blue. Now, I can cross them over each other, so don't think I'm going side by side. Just to show you, there's both colors at the same time. So the 2 pens can select individual colors, and the board knows which one is which. However, you have to select with the one you want to use. So again, if I wanted to write orange with the black pen, I use the black pen to select my tool, and then the black pen to select orange, and now I'm writing in orange. I take my red pen, I hit the pen, I select purple, and now I'm writing in purple. So that is how you can write in 2 colors at the same time when you are on the Android device. When you are on a computer, you can add the finger as a 3rd color, but not on the Android. So on the Android, it's just 2 colors. You may be asking, well, why can't I use my hand on the Android? And that's because on the Android, your hand is always going to be your mouse. So let's say I wanted to rotate this little line right here. If I touch it, it gets that blue box around it. The dot on the bottom allows me to change the size. The dot on the top allows me to spin. The menu option is going to let me delete it or lock it. If I lock it, I cannot move it again. So that's good if you wrote something and you want to lock it down before the students come up to solve. So like if you do a math problem, Write your math problem, lock it, and then when the student comes up, if they go to erase, it'll erase their work, but not the original problem that you wrote. So that's what the lock is good for. And again, the second option is delete. So you have the dot on top to rotate, the dot on the corner to change the size, and once something is highlighted, I can then move it anywhere on my screen. Something we haven't talked about yet with the screen is the fact that this is an infinite screen. So you'll notice right now, I'm kind of writing on the whole thing, but let's say I want to keep going. I can just scroll, and you'll notice that as soon as I touch the board, I can move my things up and down, but I also get this grid here on the bottom. What you'll see is when you're looking at that grid, the white part is what you're looking at on your screen, and the grayed out part is the rest of the whiteboard. So if I move this up, you'll see the purple is still right here at the top corner, and on the white box here, you'll see that purple is still there, but everything else is hiding off screen above. When I let go, you'll see that that will fade away in a moment and disappear, and now I can keep writing on my screen. So if I take my pen again, I'm just going to write a nice big hello. So now I've written more on my screen, and again, I can now move it, and you'll see that whatever I'm looking at, that grid on the bottom lets me see. I could also zoom in and out. So 2 fingers to pinch. Right there, I am now looking at the full screen. So you can see there was all my squiggles, there's my word hello, but now there is no real moving around because I'm looking at that whole screen. I can go back and pinch out again, and you can see now here I'm just zoomed into a little bit of the design. So a lot of different things you can do, zooming in, zooming out, moving stuff around, it's all possible. After the pen tool, you're going to see that you have a selector tool. So if you had something and you want to be able to manipulate the whole thing at once rather than a single letter, so just to show you, if I click on that right now, the W and the H is considered one object, but the rest of the word is not. So if I select that rectangle and then I drag to the whole thing, you'll notice it selects everything at once. So the rectangle is just to select multiple objects at the same time. Now that I've selected it, I can move them all. I could rotate. Oh, I accidentally let go, so let me try that again. I could rotate the whole thing. So a lot of different things you can do when you select multiple objects. The next thing is an insert. You'll notice it kind of looks like one of those landscape backgrounds with a plus sign, and when I click on that, it says Add Online Content. So I'm going to go here and I'm just going to search for a smile. And you'll notice when that's doing it, I have images and I have videos. So if I want to pick an image, I'm just going to take this little emoji right here, I just touch it, and it drags that emoji into my screen. If I go to the videos, I can just click on the first video because I don't know what they are anyway, and it brings me a thumbnail of that video. When I hit play, that video will now open full screen and it will start playing. The last thing on the menu is your widgets again. So we had talked about the widgets on the home screen. You'll notice that now in the whiteboard, we also add some math tools such as your protractor and your ruler. They are constantly coming up with more widgets, so those over-the-air updates that I mentioned, the software updates that come out in the middle of the night when there's no one in the school building, that's when new widgets are going to magically appear the next morning when you come into school. So again, don't power off completely because those widgets are part of those updates that come through. The last thing is your undo button. So if you hit that, it's going to just undo the last thing you wrote. Alright, so now that we have looked at the side panel, we're going to look at adding additional slides. I wanted to do this separately because it is going to blow your mind when you see all the types of slides you can add. So we're just on the plain whiteboard right now, but I'm going to click that plus sign, and you'll see a lot of stuff just popped up. So the blank page is just going to give you another whiteboard, just a blank screen. But down here, these ready-made activities, these are the fun things. So you have your graphic organizers, you have columns, you have Venn diagrams, you have Frayer model, you have all different types of things that you would want to do. Then you have your manipulatives. Your manipulatives are going to mostly be used for math class. There aren't too many ELA or social studies types of manipulatives right now, but again, overnight updates, they can come anytime. So let's say, for example, we're going to pick this first one that says money, and it's going to add this slide right here. You'll see the coins on the bottom, you'll see a blank space on the top, and then two little rectangles. When you click on one of the coins, you'll see in the corner it gets the infinity logo. These coins are what is called an infinite cloner. No matter how many of these nickels I drag, I will never, ever, ever run out of nickels. How many of you wish that would happen in your actual wallet, right? Okay, I wouldn't waste time with the nickels. If I was doing this with my actual wallet, we would go right to those half dollars, maybe the dollar bills, I don't know. But infinite cloner means no matter how many times you drag it, it never runs out. It's just constantly making a copy. So you can do so many different things with your students. You can ask them to make change. You can ask them to give you like 5 different ways of making a dollar. Whatever you want to do, those manipulatives are preset for you. Again, I hit that plus sign, I look at my manipulatives, I can drag down music teachers. Here's your staff paper. So you can pull that up right there, and let's say we take our treble clef, and then we want the kids to draw scale. They can just drag those notes. I'm not going to drag all of them, that would just take forever. But you see the point. It's infinite cloners on the bottom. You can do whatever you want to do on the top. Nice and easy, fast, interactive assignments for your students. If I click on that plus sign again, we didn't look at this yet, the shout it out. Shout it out is really, really cool, but it's hard to demonstrate when I'm one person talking to a camera. So what the shout it out does is it's going to allow your students through their devices to connect to your panel. So the first thing it says is start for class, and it's going to pop up with a 6-digit code and a website address. Sometimes it's a little slow depending on the internet, so just be aware it might not be instantaneous. If you get to the point where you're like me and the screen just came up blank, that means that you probably set it to a do not remind me next time option. So here's how you would get that code and website for your students. Up in the top corner, you'll see there's a silhouette of 2 people with the number 0. You're going to click on that, and that right there is what you send to your students. So your students are going to go to hellosmart.com, and then when they log in using their student accounts, Google or Microsoft, whatever you guys are using, this is the 6-digit code they would enter. Every board has its own 6-digit code, and every teacher has their own 6-digit code. So when you're logged into the board, this would actually be your code. If you are not logged into the board randomly generates a 6-digit code. So the students would go to hellosmart.com, they would type in that 6-digit code, and then what's going to happen is your students can send stuff to the board without getting out of their seats, without picking up a pen, anything like that. To show you how this works, I just went to hellosmart.com on my cell phone because this will work from any device with internet access. Where it says class ID, I am going to type in that code and hit next. It asks me what my name is. For today's sample, I'm just putting the name demo. I hit join as guest. Again, your students will hit login as a student, which is the option in the screen before, so they don't have to put in a name or anything. It's going to just automatically sync to their school email address. Once you're logged in as a student, you will see that it has a text box, and I could write anything in here I want. Before I do that, I am going to just turn off this screen right here by hitting the silhouette of two people again. So I wrote, hello, this is a sample, and I hit send my response. As soon as I sent my response, it pops up right there on the screen. I can do it again because it allows each student to do 3 responses. You'll see again, it came right up there. I can drag the student responses all over the screen wherever I want them. I can click on them and make them bigger. So a lot of different things that now my students are at their devices, I'm at the board, and I could ask a question and they can be sending stuff. So again, the shout out is a really nifty tool just to give your kids some interactivity from their devices. We are going to eventually get into some software things, so there are more interactive activities besides the shout out, but most of them would require you to pre-design them on your computer before doing them at the board. The shout out is the easiest one to do from the device without any pre-setup on your computer at all. So again, to do a shout out, you would hit the plus sign, and then shout it out is right next to blank page, and it would just create that new shout out for you. During this video, I have made a couple of different whiteboards without actually leaving the whiteboard. So how can I go back and forth between the different events that I did? For a reminder, we did drawing straight lines just to show the pens. We did the counting coins, we did the music, and we did the shout out. To get between those slides, what we're going to do is down here at the bottom, you'll see I have arrows, so I can move between those slides that way. But I also, right between the 2 arrows, see the number 3, and if I click on that, it shows you I'm currently on slide 3, but I can go back to slide 1. I can go back to slide 5. I can go back to slide 2. So you can click on the middle number to go between all the slides quickly, or you can use those arrows to go through them one at a time. To get back to the home screen, you are going to hit that home button right there in the middle of the pens, and it takes you back. You'll see the whiteboard we were just working on is listed as a recent. If I click on the whiteboard tool though, it will open a brand new whiteboard. I'm just going to write something on this as a sample, so let me just squiggle. And then I'm going to go hit home again. So now you'll see I have 2 whiteboards under recent because we had the first file which has the 5 slides, and then the next slide which is just the 1 slide. I'm going to hit clean up because I want you to see that when you clean up the board, it does not actually delete those files. So you'll notice I no longer have that column that says recent. If I click on files, you will see today I have 4 files. Then it goes back. Obviously I didn't use this board in July, so it went today, it went June, all the way back whenever this board was used. All the files that were created when no one was logged in will show up in the files. Once again, this was just an overview of the hardware of the Smart 6000S interactive flat panel. There is a lot more we can do with the software of this. However, we just wanted to help you get started very quickly with the hardware itself.